ఫుల్ స్క్రీన్ వేస్తా. వాయిస్ ఓకేనా? ఓకే. Good afternoon to all. We are entering into the 5th day's session of FDP. Today the speaker is Dr. GVSR Deekshitul Garu. In the last 4 days, we enjoyed all the sessions, and the remaining 2 also. We hope it's very excellent. And today, a brief introduction regarding GVSR Deekshitul Garu will be given by our colleague Sri K. Srinivas Babu Garu. Now I request our colleague Srinivas Babu Garu to give a brief introduction to our Deekshitul Garu. Srinivas Garu, please.
అది లెఫ్ట్ సైడ్ కీప్ ఉంటుంది విడింగ్ అక్కడ నుంచి ఇంకోటి ఆఫీస్కి పట్టుకొచ్చి
మరి జాగ్రత్త తాళం వేసి వచ్చే.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon to all of you. I am K. Srinivas Babu, Assistant Professor, Department of Engineering Mathematics. It gives me an immense pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Dr. GVSR Deekshitul Garu, Professor and HOD of Mathematics, JNTU College of Engineering, Kakinada. He joined as Professor of Mathematics in University College of Engineering, Kakinada, JNTUK in 2013. Professor Deekshitulu did his MSc Applied Mathematics from Andhra University in the year 1994 and did his PhD from Andhra University in the year 1998 at the age of 26. He has more than 22 years of experience in teaching as well as in research also. His areas of research are differential equations, time scales, fractional differential and difference equations. He produced 5 PhDs and at present he is giving guidance to 6 PhD scholars. He authored chapters in books, delivered invited lecture talks and at a national or international level in India and abroad. He published nearly 55 research publications in international journals of repute. He is a reviewer for many international journals. Also, he qualified in CSR Net in 1994 and qualified in GATE 1995. He also got junior research fellowship and senior research fellowships also, and completed a DST project of 9.5 lakhs along with Professor JV Devi, GVP LIAS, Visakhapatnam. He held different positions like head of the Department of Mathematics, chairman, board of studies, officer in charge of hostels, additional controller of examinations, PG courses, director, faculty development center, JNTU Kakinada. This is the brief introduction about Dr. Deekshitul Garu, and he is going to give a talk on mathematical modeling using difference equations. Thank you, sir. Now I hand over the session to Dr. GVSR Deekshitul Garu. Please take over the session, sir.
Thank you, Srinivas Babu Garu, and thank you, Subbarao Garu.
Thank you, sir.
For introducing me, first inviting me to this workshop on faculty development program and giving me a chance to learn a couple of things as in the process of preparing this lecture and preparing for the talk. So I always consider whenever people call me to give a talk like this, I always consider that to be a chance to learn a couple of things, new things. Obviously, life itself is a continuous learning process. Yeah. Okay. Anyhow, first, are you able to discuss this? See them as a screen. Hello. Are you able to see the screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
On screen.
Yes, sir. Meer kanpadutunnaru, sir.
Let's move. Come to us from all sides. Are you able to see this slide?
Sir, kindly share your screen.
Not
Screen share cheyandi, sir. Meere kanpadutunnaru. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. First, let us vacate our minds, just having non-positive thoughts, which is very much essential for learning. Let noble thoughts come to us from all sides. This is my first slide wherever I go. So, just a moment. There is a problem with this. So mathematical modeling using a difference equation. This is the title of my talk, and my first salutes to my parents and the teachers, my teachers who have made me what I am today. And before going into the these things, presentation and the modeling and other things, let us first for a few minutes let us see what happens if there is no mathematics or mathematical logic in our day-to-day life. Yeah, coming to the basics, the beginning of the human culture. As societies and humankind evolved, we used to have so many problems. We had so many problems. Simply having a sense of idea, good or bad, more or less, reasonable or non-reasonable, just would not be sufficient to meet the needs, to cater our day-to-day needs, to achieve or to understand things. What else is required? Say, for example, what primeval people used to do in order to count the animals, the cows, buffaloes, sheep. It is often conjectured that one of the earliest methods of doing so would be the tally sticks. They used to pick some pebbles or small sticks. Let us say they are taking the sheep out, okay, or buffaloes. First one stick, keep it aside. Second one, second stick, keep it aside. These are the objects, the tally sticks are the object used to track the number of items to be counted. Say, for example, there are 10 goats or sheep. They used to have 10 sticks, one for each sheep or each buffalo. So in the evening again they take them back, they come back again, first one for the first stick, second one for the second stick. They used to do like this. If the sticks are more left at the end of the day, that means some of the buffaloes are missing somewhere. This is the logic they used. So mathematics is a common sense in the early stages. It is a common sense. There should be what we call today in mathematics. These are objects used to track the number of items to be counted. With this method, each stick or pebble or whatever is used there represents one animal or object. The method uses the idea of a wonderful today, one of the important concepts, one-to-one correspondence between the number of sticks and the buffaloes. In a one-to-one correspondence, items that are being counted are uniquely linked with some counting tool. So even there was no word like mathematics in the early stages, still mathematics is there. Okay, so the mathematical logic, even for the people who didn't have any primary education or any common sense, they used to have the primary logic of mathematics. This is, had it been not there, let us say, if mathematics is not there or the common sense is not there. Now, counting the buffaloes at the everyday evening and the morning definitely is a big issue for them. Similarly, I'll take another example. I quote this example many a time. When we all teach first, BTech students or BSc students or maybe MSc students, maybe from different branches also we teach. All of us know radioactive decay, right? Radioactive element is a element which reduces its mass gradually with time. So let us say my first slide is what happens if there is no mathematical logic. I have a radioactive substance and I give all of you and ask you to find half-life period of the substance. You know what is the half-life period? The time required so that the mass of the radioactive substance becomes half of the original mass. Okay, that period is called half-life period. And I assume that we don't have any mathematics. And I'm very crooked and cunning fellow. I know that the half-life period is 150 years. Only way you can is get up in the morning, have a breakfast, go to the simple balance, find the mass, every day do it. How many years you have to do it? 150 years. So if you take the 1 gram of mass, it takes 150 years to find the mass of that half-life period of that element, right? Is it feasible practically? No. It problem takes 150 years to calculate that. Now, with the help of mathematics, now 10th class and intermediate students are solving the same problem in just 2-3 minutes only. So that means the problem that takes 150 years to be solved, now our guys are doing it in 3 minutes time. The power of mathematics or the mathematical logic. So these are the type of difficulties that we might experience if you don't have the mathematical logic. Okay, see, and that's why Sidney J. Harris rightly said the whole purpose of education is to turn mirrors into windows. As long you sit before the mirror, just you will see your face only. But if you want to understand what is going beyond that, outside world, you don't need a window. If your room is completely closed with mirrors, everywhere, wherever you will see yourself only. You cannot see outside world. So let's replace the mirrors with the windows. Then only you can see through these windows what's going on and what is the philosophy, what is the understanding of the physical problems and all that. So maybe the counting of animals in the very primeval stage, or maybe radioactive decay in the advanced stage, whatever it is. A scientific study, analysis and interpretation are the most important tools that could convert these mirrors into windows in the scientific world. This type of scientific study is very much required. So that the purpose is the purpose of education is to turn mirrors into windows. Then let us see engineering people, because I have been teaching engineering people for the last maybe 20 plus years. Every day we have a fight with every day we have an argument with engineers. Why mathematics and engineering? Why mathematics this? With those people who ask that question, they don't know what exactly the meaning of mathematics is, what exactly the role of mathematics is. Let us say we have a real world problem, and then from the real world problem we go to parameters involved in the problem, and from that we derive a mathematical model, then solution of the mathematical model, and then using this solution we interpret the real world problem. Just take this radioactive decay element of after a period of radioactive element. So the basic parameters involved are mass, that is because changing with respect to time is independent. So these are the two variables we have. First we identify the parameters. The second thing is we try to derive a relation between these two parameters involved. One is independent variable and the other one is dependent variable. We are calling them time and the mass, right? What is the relation? The mass changes with respect to time. That is calculus says it is dm by dt. Is proportional to initial mass, and that is principle of radioactive decay. So dm by dt is proportional to m, but mass is gradually decreasing. So that's why you have minus sign. So now we have a mathematical model, and then we are solving. Our guys are able to solve this mathematical problem. Solution we are getting. Then from the solution we are going to the real world problem. The process is taking 3 minutes for us to calculate. Now question now. So this is all very nice. The role of mathematics and where we are now in this representation, where exactly we belong now, we fit in now. The first 3-step real world problem to mathematical modeling. This is the toughest thing, because toughest thing we don't discuss it in general. We always try to focus on easy things. What we do, where we fit here is, then what are we doing and where are we in this schematic approach? In this schematic approach, what are we doing regularly in our regular classrooms, or regular studying or teaching or learning? Where are we? The answer is just we are finding the solutions of mathematical problems. That means we are last step we are focusing mathematical model to. This mathematical model can be a differential equation, it can be a difference equation, it can be optimization problem, it can be a graph theory problem, it may be linear programming problem, nonlinear programming problem, may be anything. It is said that there are 8,000 different fields in mathematics in which active research has been going on. It is approximately very recently I have studied that there are 8,000 fields approximately of mathematics, different branches of mathematics in which active work is going on. Okay, so then mathematical model can be anything. So what we are doing is we are always dealing with the solutions of mathematical problem. We are not even dealing with interpretations, unfortunately. So we are always struggling with the last step. If somebody asks you what are we doing in engineering stream, this is what we are doing. So the answer is finding the solutions of mathematical problems. Okay, we are getting the solution, very nice. But what about understanding the problem? It remains the same, and forever stays at you. Meaning is that because this is the hidden curtain between engineering people, technical people, or maybe biologists, geologists, whatever it is, and mathematics people. We always talk about solving mathematical problems, and those engineers just talk about one engineering problem, and then how we go a step ahead or how they can come forward a step, we are not discussing. That is a major issue. Then we're talking about mathematical modeling. Third step is mathematical modeling. What is a mathematical modeling? Mathematical model is the art of translating the problems, real world problems, or maybe from an application area into a tractable mathematical formulations whose theoretical and numerical analysis provides insight, answers, and guidance for the actual application. You can understand theoretically, analyze, and provides an insight into the actual problem. You can go into the problem and observe it, understand it. Then why modeling? Gives thorough understanding of the system, gives precision and direction for problem and solution, and guides through the path for better design of a system. What do you mean by this? For better design of a system? With the basic understanding, let us say I formulate a model. Okay, but when I complete the model, I solve it and I verify my model with the real world data, existing data, but the data collected. Okay, these two things. That means actual data and the calculated data, they should go hand in hand. They should match. If they don't match, that means your model is not correct. So it guides you to the path for better design a system. That means then you have to refine your model to get a better model. Okay, allows to use the modern computing methods for precision. Then comes the precision. Once the model is very finely designed, tuned, then you have to use computing methods to find the solution of that. And the computing methods, because we need the precision. The successful and this mathematical modeling is proved to be successful and nowadays indispensable in the real world applications. Take any problem today that will be modeled mathematically first and then simulated, and then computing techniques are used, and then we get the very accurate solution. Accurate means best approximate solution. So this is what we what modeling is. And then obviously differential equations or difference equations play a vital role in mathematical modeling. Why? Because every phenomena that we observe in nature depends on one variable parameter. Maybe in general it is whole world is a dynamical system. It depends clearly on one universal parameter given by God, proposed by the God, that is time. Time and tide wait for nothing, right? So time is such a precious thing for human beings or philanthropists or philosophists and for mathematicians in mathematical modeling also. Every process, every physical process, every real world problem, every biological problem, it is running in terms of time. Okay, so time is an independent variable. Any phenomena is depending on time, or for that matter the other variable that we have, spatial coordinates, x-axis, y-axis and z-axis. I am going to from Kakinada to Bhimavaram, the spatial coordinates change. I am going here to space, my coordinates are changing. So every moment, dynamic systems, every moment of the particle, the particle is moving, at every moment of time, the position of the particle is defined by the spatial coordinates, and the spatial coordinates change with respect to time. These are the very basic things. So once we have some independent variables, obviously there are some dependent variables also. Because there are dependent variables, we are calling it as an independent variable. So when we talk about dependent variable which are varying with respect to time, then comes the concept of change with respect to the dependent variable. This is what modeling, this is where the modeling starts. So differential equations, the importance, that's why, because we have independent variables and dependent variables everywhere, and the change is always coined in terms of the independent variable, change in dependent variable with respect to change in independent variable. Obviously calculus comes into picture. When calculus comes into picture, differentiation comes into picture. Differentiation comes into picture implies differential equations arise. So mathematical models that describe physical phenomena are in most cases differential equations. The theory of differential equations is a classical theory in mathematics having a wide spectrum of application in real world problems, engineering, and in other allied subjects. In spite of the effective applications of differential equations in fields like population dynamics, the theory of differential equations could not, in some cases, address certain problems, particularly involving hereditary influence. So its applications are somewhat limited. Then comes difference equations. On the other hand, observed evolution phenomena can be modeled effectively by difference equations than by differential equations, since observations are measured at discrete times. This is a very, very valid point. Which is first, hen or egg? That's the regular question we have. So which one is important, differential equations or difference equations? See, because of the classical analysis attached with the tagged with differential equations like fixed point theory, Banach fixed point, maybe functional analysis, maybe continuity and differentiability. The rigorous mathematical ideas tagged with differential equation, it has attained a very big name. Difference equation, whereas difference equation, it does not deal much with it, is not worried about the continuity or the limits or so on and so forth. Even if you go to the premier first example of counting the buffaloes, and we are talking about 1-1 correspondence, 1, 2, see counting process. We are getting a 1-1 correspondence between the counting numbers, natural numbers, and the objects. That means is it a continuous process or discrete process? It's a discrete process. Then people didn't know what is continuity, what is limit, what is the differentiability, what is integration, what is differential equation. Still, they know how to count the animals, the fellows. So difference equation always comes first and leaves at the end. Why? Because fluid mechanics people, you know very well, with people who are working CFD, you have wonderful, beautiful partial differential equation for the given fluid motion. When you want to solve it, what you do? You apply finite difference schemes. What is finite difference scheme? Discretization of differential equation. Then you go for the programming, and then what is the result finally? Y at 1, y at 2, y at 3, y at 10. What you are getting? Your table of values. What is that? That is a discrete data again. So at the starting we have discrete systems. At the end we have again discrete system. So this is what we mean by, on the other hand, observed evolution phenomena. What do you mean by observed evolution phenomena? Say for example, the students in the laboratory, they go to laboratory and switch on the experiment. They start the experiment. After 5 minutes, what is the data? After 10 minutes, note the data. After 15 minutes, they note the data. At the end of the experiment, they have a data of 20 or 30 or 100 points. Okay. So what you are having at different times, they have different outputs. That's the data. It's an observed evaluation phenomenon. The points are discrete, t is equal to 5, 10, 15, 20. You cannot model such this thing with a differential equation because the points are discrete. So that's what we mean by observed evaluation. All the population dynamics, the census, maybe population, per capita income, GDP, all these things are measured only in terms of some discrete points. The census is taken for every 10 years. GDP calculated every periodically. So everything is observed phenomena. They're all discrete points, discrete times. Also in digital era, discretization of their continuous counterparts is very much required and demanding for numerical computation. That's exactly what I am saying. If you have a wonderful partial differential equation in fluid mechanics or maybe conduction of heat, then to find a numerical solution, what we are doing? We are discretizing the first derivative, second derivative, and then we are applying wonderfully what is that Crank-Nicholson method or whatever it is, find different schemes for the given thing. It's a process of converting a derivative into finite differences. This is what we are called discretization process. Discretization process. See, we are all very smart mathematicians, but for that example, for that matter, engineers are very smart. We change parties just like political leaders. When we say we want the data, immediately we convert the whole partial differential equation in fluid mechanics into data. So we use this. When we have data and when we want to find the value of the function at any intermediate point, immediately we use this data and we try to come out with a, what is that? Interpolating polynomial. We use the data and we interpolate it using finite difference schemes and maybe forward difference table, backward difference, this thing, polynomial and all that. From the data to, we get a wonderful polynomial for the given data. So, and once you get the polynomial, you can get the value of the function wherever you want. Forget about the discrete data. Okay, so this is, we always go from this to this end, from this end to this end, and we always shuffle between these two ends. Continuous process and discrete process depends on our requirement. So that's why we change sides whenever we want. Thus, due to the twofold advantage of difference equation, what is the twofold advantage? Because one is observed phenomena, we always have data at discrete times. Other one is discretization process of the continuous process to find numerical solutions of the complex problems. Because of twofold advantage, difference equations, researchers in applied mathematics started exploring the applications of differential equations in probability theory, dynamic systems, electrical circuit analysis, fluid mechanics, thermal equations, wherever you want, everywhere it is there. So many works have been carried out on these types of equations during these last years. Unfortunately, difference equations are neglected basically by all, no exception. Unfortunately, more unfortunately by mathematicians. They are neglected right from the beginning. And now we are getting the importance of difference equations because every problem is now finally converging into computer science and information technology. Or say for example, or at least numerical computation. When you go for a numerical computation, every equation, every process is discretized and taken into the task of numerical computation. Okay, so everything is converted into soft data, right? So now people are noting the importance of difference equation, particularly in computer science engineering people. They call them, these difference equations are also known as recurrence relations. They have recurrence relations, a very important idea in their programming languages and structure, grammar structures, and everywhere they use difference equations. So now we are getting the advantage. The importance of, people are identifying the importance of difference equations now. So let us say, what is the motivation? Let us see a few examples. Let us see first before going to the modeling part. Consider the value. Then first counting example of buffaloes or animals. Then gradually, as time increased, people used to borrow money from Sethi, and then he used to calculate some interest, and then how much interest that will be accumulated over a period of time. They used to calculate. Consider the value of savings certificate, or maybe savings certificate, maybe postal savings or bank savings, whatever it is. Typically, initially worth 1,000 rupees, that accumulates interest of 1% per month. Calculate a sequence of maturity amounts for coming 3 months. A very simple calculation, because A is the principal amount is 1,000, R is 1%. So that comes out to be 0.01% of 1,000, that is interest part. So principal plus interest gives you 1,001 rupees. Second year becomes 1,020, so on and so forth. In general, if you are smart, and this is a basic calculation by very small businessman who gives money, hand loans. You know, in villages or rural people, they get money. Just people cycle. The person comes by cycle with some interest. They see small notebook. He collects the money and goes back. This small equation they use. But mathematics people will go a bit one step ahead and we write a mathematical expression for that. Generalizing this, an plus 1 is equal to an plus 0.01 times an. So an is the amount, present amount, and then an plus 1 be the amount plus the principal. I mean principal plus interest. That's an plus 1 is equal to an plus 0.01 an. All said and done, an investment in knowledge pays the best interest, as Benjamin Franklin rightly said. There are interest in monetary terms, small benefits, but if you invest in knowledge, it gives you better dividends. Another example, it is observed that decrease in the mass of a radioactive substance over a fixed time period is proportional to initial mass and half-life is 600 years. Let us say I said only 150 years. Now this fellow is saying 1600 years. Find the mass after t years. Now in the first example, just I calculate only principal amount. Now I'm taking a step ahead, going a step ahead as m of t plus 1 minus mt. I'm talking about change now. That is proportional to mt, gradually decreases, so minus k times mt, and for first event m plus 1, 1 minus k into mt in terms of t minus 1, if you do it, 1 minus k whole square mt minus 1, 1 minus k whole cube mt minus 2, so on, so it goes like this. So mt is equal to 1 minus k whole power t into m of 0. This is what we are getting right now. Okay. With this expression, we are able to calculate very easily. Another example, if you take approx, see, we all teach this difference equations. Okay, we always use this find the approximate solution of x dash t is equal to f of t xt, xt naught is equal to 0. Okay, x dash is approximated with limit h goes to 0, x of t plus h minus x of t by h, that is equal to f of t xt. Okay, or x of t plus h is equal to x of t plus h into f of t xt. X of t plus 2h is equal to x of t plus h plus, I'm sorry, I'm taking this mouse for the benefit of you people to understand, so that you understand well. So that's why small disturbance. Okay, yeah. So like this, x of t plus h, x of t plus 2h, x of t plus 3h, we are calculating all these things. If the experiment is started with t is equal to t naught, such that tn is equal to t naught plus nh and xn is equal to x of t naught plus nh, then the above equation can be written as x of t plus n plus 1 plus h is equal to 1. What is this equation? This is nothing but your Euler's equation, Euler's method to find a solution of the initial value problem. What we have done here, we have considered a differential equation along with a initial condition, and it is converted into a difference equation. What we are calling discretization process. Okay. Now, before going to the other things, the expert anything was once a beginner. We have to make a beginning. A good start is off done. Let us summarize and formulate the basic prerequisites to understand these problems and solutions in a mathematical way. First, let's understand sequence. I'll give a brief account of the basic things, and then we'll go to modeling, right? Sequence is a function whose domain is a set of all non-negative integers and whose range is a subset of real numbers. Because we have to define a sequence in difference equations, right from 1-to-1 correspondence between the small pebbles and animals to mathematical rigor, sequence is required. Then a dynamical system. A dynamic system is a dynamic system concept is a mathematical formalization for any fixed rule which describes the time dependence of a point at a position. So time dependence of a point. Let us say the particle is moving like this with time, right? Okay. A dynamical system concept is a mathematical formulation for any fixed rule. That means what is the rule followed by the particle? This particle is taking a path. Okay. How to find the path? This is a rule followed by the particle. Mean that rule now in terms of the position of the particle at any given point of time. That is the relationship among the terms in a sequence. That means now it is here, next here. So what is the relation between these two positions, un minus 1 and un? So that sort of relation we call it as a dynamical system. Then once the dependent variable is changing, then immediately comes into picture the change. In most of the cases, describing changes mathematically is not as precise a procedure as in the previous examples, because in the previous, all the previous examples, what is the interest last year? What is the interest this year? Subtract, you are exactly perfectly getting the amount, right? For all the examples you have considered here. Now this is the amount here, this is the amount last year. What is the difference? You are able to calculate it, right? This is a very precise procedure as in the previous examples. We must plot the change, observe a pattern, and then approximate the change in the mathematical terms as change is equal to some function of En. Whereas in continuous change, what happens? We always talk about h goes to 0. This we cannot visualize that concept. That change you can say, but you cannot visualize what we mean by h goes to 0, how this changes. We call it the derivatives, so many terms we use. But then what is a continuous and versus discrete change? In all previous examples and problems of that type, change takes place in discrete time intervals, such as interest after 2 years, maybe after 3 years, so on and so forth. In other cases, the change happens continuously. That means such as change in the temperature of a cold can of soda, thermal conductivity, fluid flow. What so many examples. Change cannot be observed that easily. So, because my talk is about difference equations, I don't want to waste much of time on differential equations. Straight away, I want to hit the target, that is difference operator. Just as the differential operator in continuous case, that is d is equal to d by dt, plays a vital role in the differential calculus. In discrete case, this operator is called difference operator, delta or del, the basic component of calculations involving the changes at discrete points. Let yt be a function of real variable, then the difference operator defined where delta yt is equal to y of t plus 1 minus y of t. More generally, the domain is considered to be natural numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. The step size need not be unity always, as mentioned in the above definition. Sometimes it may be some real number, positive number h, so that the delta of y of t is equal to y of t plus h minus y of t. You know all these things, just I go a bit fast. Similarly, you can find the second order difference also, delta of delta yt, that is y of t plus 2 minus 2 y of t plus 1 plus y of t. Nth order difference, similarly you can find this. Then comes another important thing, shift operator is also very, very important for us. So delta yt is equal to y of t plus 1 minus y of that. Y of t plus 1 we call it as shift operator denoted by e. So this delta becomes now e minus 1. Similarly, e square is y of t plus 2, e power k is y of t plus k. Without loss of generality, we call e minus k as y of t minus k. See, this is very important in a sense. I'll tell you why this e power minus k is important. So if you see this delta operator, what is doing delta y is y of t plus h minus y of t. So it is going a step forward and then calculating the delta, right? That means, or else if you know the y at the present time, then you are able to find y of t plus h or delta yt. Now, some certain problems, they involve the memory function. What has happened previously? say for example, in the internal exam, at the end of your semester, the students, what all counts is continuous evaluation system. That's what we are talking about, buzzword, continuous evaluation system. Right from day one, how many examinations, quiz, objective, descriptive, knowledgeable, non-knowledgeable, useless, useful, everything we finally, we cumulative effect of that gives you the final grading, right? So that means that is past history of the students is very important. So continuous evaluation system studies how we have been doing over a period of time. That is, see, these systems involving delta, they won't take this. Just they give you immediately. The next time what happens depending on this time only, but not yesterday's case. But whereas when you use e power minus k, what is it is considering y of t minus k. That means if time is measured in terms of years, t minus k means for the last k years, what is the behavior? Okay, that is what we call memory function or past history. The task of burden of education is not to cut down the jungles, but to irrigate deserts. It's not just simply we have a big jungle, chop the trees. It's not. That means what exactly? By icing the cake, that's icing the cake. It's not the preparation of the cake, right? But what the purpose of education is to irrigate deserts. You take the deserts and then irrigate them and have a wonderful garden there. That is the task of modern education. But unfortunately, not irrigating now. Most of the cases is irritating the minds. Now, continuity versus discreteness. So continuous case, the best example, we have analog watches, we have analog cases, analog thermometer, analog so on and so forth. Now everything is discrete. Wherever you see discrete gadget or discrete phenomena, there we have difference equations. So we are living very close equations. That's why I said at the very beginning, difference equations is more important for real world problems. And then we have continuous change here. It is not actually observable because as h goes to 0, I say however small, h is equal to 0.00000, you cannot observe it, in fact. But whereas change at discrete points, you can measure it, you can observe the data. Differentiation, and here we call it difference. And the corresponding theory of equations is called differential equations. We call it as difference equations. Comes and goes way in the middle, comes first and goes at the end. So that's the comparison between continuous and discrete cases. Then what is the relation between these two things? Do they have anything common in them, or can we have derive an expression for the mediator between these two, right? I mean, some expression relating these two things. See, we know that dy by dt is limit h goes to 0 y of t plus h minus y of t by h, and the denominator we are calling as forward difference operator. The limit h goes to 0. This is nothing but delta yt by h. So this is the exact relation between these two. So let us say our domain is discrete domain. So h going to 0 never happens. It's absurd. So let us eliminate that limit concept. Let us avoid that limit concept. Then what happens? When the limit h goes to 0, then these two things are equal, left and right are equal. But when that condition is not there, they are not equal. There will be some error. So that means, let us say we call it limiting error. So then what happens when you remove this limit h goes to 0, this delta y by h plus limiting error. So if you multiply throughout, you get h dy by dt is equal to delta yt plus h into limiting error. Okay, so this is the relation between these two things. Now, as this limit error becomes small, then these two things will be equal. Let us say an example. Let us say y of t is equal to t square plus 2t plus t, 2t plus 2. So dy by dt is clearly, we know that 2t plus t, and delta y is y t plus h whole square plus 2 into t plus h plus 2 minus, because y of t plus h minus y of t minus t square plus 2t plus 2 So if you simplify and cancel certain terms, you will be left with h square plus 2h into t plus 1. Derivative is 2t plus 2. Difference is h square plus 2h into t plus 1. Let us see what happens. At t is equal to 1, let us calculate this. Y dash becomes 4 and your delta y becomes 1 plus 2 into 1 plus 2. It becomes 5, which are not equal. Why they are not equal? Because we have taken h is equal to t is equal to 1 and h is equal to 1. Okay. But what does happen when h gradually decreases? Let us see. So if I take h is equal to 1, y dash is 4, delta y is 5. That's what we have calculated here in this step. Now delta y is 5. Then what is delta y by h? That means delta y by h means this expression. Okay. That is 5. Remember, h going to 0 is not there. Okay, that h is not going to 0. Now let us say I reduce the step size to 0.5. The y dash does not change, it's still 4. Then this delta y becomes 2.25 and this becomes 4.5. What is the value? Here it is 4, 5 here. It is 4, 4.5. Let's take h is equal to 0.25. Y dash is still 4. Here delta y becomes 1.0625. This value becomes 4.25. And h is equal to 0.01. Further reduces. This delta y by h becomes 4.01. Very good. And then further, if you take h is equal to 0.001, y dash remains 4, delta y becomes 0.004, so on, so 01, and it becomes 4.001. So what is happening? As h is gradually decreasing, this delta y by h becomes close to y dash. That is how this y dash and delta y they change. And then I hope you understand how the relation between this differential operator and difference operator. Now some basic properties of delta operator, all of you know it. Delta m, delta n is delta m plus n yt. Delta is this linear operator. Then product of these two things, unlike in differential calculus, is a bit changes here because yt delta zt plus delta yt is e of zt. This is one change we have. It's not so in differential calculus. Similarly, you can express this in other way also in terms of other variable also. Now, most important property here, the last one. So sigma I from 0 to n delta xi. Why I'm using this property? Delta x is now similar to derivative. Then what about summation? Summation is similar to your integration. Okay. So summation of delta xi is summation of xi plus 1 minus xi because delta xi is xi plus 1 minus xi. So if you take summation, expand it like this, and then this x1 cancels, x2 cancels, xn cancels, xn minus 1 cancels. So what we are left with xn plus 1 minus x0. So that means if you sum up all delta xi from I from 0 to n, then you will be left with xn plus 1 minus x0. That is same relation. Integral of derivative is function itself. So if delta xn is equal to f of n xn, then it's a very important property because it solves so many problems in difference equations. Let us say if the difference equation is delta xn is equal to f of n xn, then the solution can be found using this formula. Take summation both sides, sigma delta xi, which is equal to xn plus 1 minus x0 from the previous property is sum of xi. Okay. Sometimes in modeling, one has to consider the past history, that's what I said earlier, or memory, that is the values of the dependent variable at previous times. In such cases, forward difference operator cannot address the problem as it involves the present and next values. Okay, therefore the modeling point of view, an operator involving past times is essential. This is called backward difference operator. It is defined as delta y is equal to yt minus yt. Unfortunately, most of the 150% of the students and 100% of the teachers, they are calling it as del operator. They are calling the forward as delta. They are calling this as del operator. It is wrong. This is not del. It is called nabla. N-A-B-L-A, nabla operator. This is delta or a del. Same. This is called nabla. Okay. So nabla m, nabla n. Similar properties they carry out here also with small change in the property 3 and 4. Okay. Now coming to difference equations. So difference equations are used to model the phenomena involving changes that take place at different discrete times. That's all we have discussed. The standard form is f of xt plus n, xt plus n minus 1, xt. See, this is one notation. You can neglect t also, so it becomes f of xn, xn minus 1, xn, no matter. So linear difference equation is of the form. Linear means we know that the dependent variable is not multiplied with any other value of the dependent variable or any other argument. That is just like in the case of differential equation. The dependent variable is not multiplied with itself or any of its derivatives. That is how we define linear differential equation. Here also the same definition works out well. The dependent variable x n or any of the dependent variable at any argument is not multiplied with itself, then such an equation is called linear difference equation. Importance of difference equations are very basic and important, unfortunately neglected. These are known as recurrence relations, which are very popular in computer science, IT. Every field now is converging to CS and IT. The development of theory of difference equation and the solution methodology are very much analogous to differential equation. The solution methodology is very much in tandem with that of differential equation. The working lines are very much similar. In fact, discrete calculus is the most realistic one. It is a reality. Let us say if f0, f1, so on and so forth, the fn are all constants, or something. I'm sorry, they are all functions. And say a0, a1 are constant, then the equation is called linear difference equation with constant coefficients. That means small mistake here. I have said all constants. I'm sorry. Here f0t, f1t, fnt, they are all functions of t. I mean n or t, whatever it is, and they are all constant. Coefficients are constants, and if the right hand side rt is 0, then the equation is called a homogeneous equation. To distinguish easily from differential equation, here we use n instead of t. That is one clear indication. We have, if I say x of n for layman or a person who knows a little bit of differential difference equations, xn means you're talking about discrete points. Xt means t stands for time. N belongs to set of natural numbers. Okay, so for simple understanding or to distinguish from differential equation, we use n in place of t, so that the equations now become here onwards xn plus 1, f0 t xn plus 1, f0 f1 f. If they are all constants, let us say a0 a1 a2 an, then a1 xn plus a2 xn and so on and so forth. That is called a linear difference equation with constant coefficients. Then what is the first order linear difference equation? Xn plus 1, as I said, I am using n now, not t anymore. So xn plus 1 minus p of n xn is equal to Rn is called the first order linear difference equation. Let us now see different models for this first order difference equations. Let us say the primary case is p is constant and r is 0. P is constant and r is 0. What happens? Let us start with n is equal to 0 with initial condition x0. So un plus 1 is equal to p into un. So n is equal to 1 gives u1 is equal to p into u0. u0 is x0, the x0. Then put it back here. N is equal to 1. ut is equal to p u1. Put it back here. P u1 is equal to p square x0. Again put it back. Put it back. And so u3. So on and so forth un. That's why these equations are also known as recurrence relations. We use these values recursively. Ackermann's recursive function people do in what is that computer program, this theory of computation. We teach this Ackermann's functions, recursive functions and all that. This is a simple recurrence relation. When r is equal to 0, but p is not constant. In the earlier case, p is constant. It is not so. Then again, starting with p0, x0 is equal to u0 is equal to x0. That means u1 becomes n is equal to 0. u1 becomes p0 u0. That is x0. u2 becomes p1 u1. u1 is p0 x0. You go on like this. Un becomes p n minus 1 I'm sorry, this will be n minus 1. Okay, so this becomes x naught product from I from 0 to n minus 1 pi. So that solution changes. Now let us see what we understand from the geometry here. Let us see. Let us say a simple example. Un plus 1 is equal to 1.01 un. U0 is 1000. Let's start with 1000. So I calculate all these u1, u2 using this previous formula, because it is p is also constant. This is what I do. This using this formula, I calculate the values and tabulate these values. I draw the graph. When r is equal to 1, here r is 1.01. Okay, that means r is a coefficient here. Let us say, I'm sorry, here r is a coefficient here. Un plus 1 becomes un. Okay, when un plus 1 becomes un for all n, what does it mean? 0, 1, 2, 3, whatever value you take for n, you have constant values. The solution is a constant solution. So then, which one is the curve? This one or this one or this one? It depends on the initial solution, initial condition. Say for example, if you take u0 is equal to 20, then what happens? u1 20, u2 20, u100 20. If you start this process with 50, un plus 1 is 50. If you start with 100, 100. That means whenever un plus 1 is equal to un, the coefficient of un is 1. That means you get a physical model. If you visualize the model depends mostly on the completely on the initial condition that we consider. The initial condition that we consider. Okay, if we change the initial condition, the dynamics changes completely. Okay. Then what happens in the coefficient? See, what I am comparing is here I have taken a coefficient 1.01, the coefficient of un, positive coefficient. It is gradually increasing. If you take 1, it's constant. If you take minus 1.01, then the solution becomes minus 1.01 power n u0. What is the behavior then? So if you tabulate the values u1, u2, so on, so forth, u16, gradually the absolute value is changing. You start with 1000, it has come to 1172. And what about the sequence? Positive, negative, oscillating. Oscillating n is blowing up. Gradually it's blowing up, increasing, and then it's oscillating. So like this. This is a very abnormal behavior. Whenever this coefficient is a negative coefficient. Now let us say a more general solution. First order linear equation. Till now what we have seen is what happens if p is a constant, r is 0, p is a function of n, r is 0, and then different cases depending on the p. Let us assume that r is not equal to 0 and start the process at n is equal to 0 with the initial condition x naught to find the solution. Let us say xn is equal to un vn, and we get, so I am not worried about the solution. Somehow I got xn is equal to un plus sigma rn by un. You can verify it afterwards. I am not worried about this at all. Now find the solution of that. N plus 1 minus n by n is equal to sigma n plus n plus 1 factorial y of n, gamma n plus 1, given that y at 1 is equal to 5. Using this, you can solve this. Solution is not an issue. I want to focus on modeling. Other forms of difference equations. We have xn plus 1 is equal to pn minus pn xn is equal to rn, or else if you subtract xn from both sides, then xn plus 1 minus xn is equal to pn minus 1 xn plus rn. So this is delta xn, qn xn plus rn, where q is pn minus 1. Sometimes difference equations are denoted in terms of delta also, but there is small danger with this. I will tell you. In general, the entire difference equation is defined like this. In terms of delta. Modeling of yeast culture. Modeling of yeast culture. Growth of yeast culture versus time in hours. Let us say this is a standard data at standard model. This is basically Malthusian model published in 1927. This is a data obtained from a zoologist in their laboratory. Observed yeast is against hours and n is 0, 9.6, n is 1, 18.6, so on so on. So then he calculated Pn plus 1 minus Pn, that is change or delta of Pn. So if you observe these changes, the change Pn plus 1 minus Pn is gradually changing. Okay. Now let us plot the graph between the change in biomass, that means this against the biomass. When it's 9.6, it's 8.7, it's 18.3, 10.7, plot the points, you see that all these points are gradually increasing, not decreasing. Or else you can also observe that the yeast is going on increasing. How long? How long will it increase? Okay. In any population dynamics, the population cannot be allowed to increase indefinitely. Okay. So in a house, if there are 5 members, that's good. If the population of the house is growing on increasing, it can accommodate 10, 15, 20. After that, what happens? It cannot. It cannot accommodate. Generally, in the similar sense, in a population of a country or a population of a community, what happens? Once it reaches a certain stage, what we call carrying capacity, it cannot accommodate more, right? First point, because I have a constraint on the space. Similarly, for the existence of the population, there should be sufficient food, sufficient oxygen, sufficient air, light, everything, natural resources. But the natural resources are not increasing in the rate of the population. Then what happens? Population is increasing, natural resources are being consumed by this population, gradually decreasing. This is increasing, this is gradually decreasing. What happens? There will be a competition between the members of the population. They will fight with each other. That's what we call competing model. Individuals compete with each other, struggle for existence. That's what we call. It observed that the change delta Pn is positive when Pn is a population biomass after n hours. Though the graph is not exactly like a straight line, can be approximately straight line. That means this graph is not exactly straight line. Let us say we approximate by some least squares method or something like that. Then we get delta Pn is equal to 0.5 Pn. The model predicts a population that increases forever, which is not practical, as the resources do not increase on par with the population. Then what happens? The struggle for existence comes into picture. People will fight with each other. So if we consider both births, then what happens? Natural deaths come. Because of more population, the pandemics or maybe diseases or maybe the process of struggle for existence, fight with each other, they kill others, right? So if you consider both births and deaths during a period that are proportional to Pn, then resources are restricted, and once these maximum levels, or that means once the population reaches the maximum carrying capacity, then we have to put some conditions. Otherwise, this model cannot be a perfect one. That's what I said. So the problem with this model is it is indefinitely increasing. It's not correct. We cannot model the real world problem with this model because there is no term which restricts, put some condition of some parameters on that. So these are the problems that these are the constraints that we can impose on the population. What are the refinements here? Both births and deaths and resources are restricted. So we restrict resources. That means the maximum capacity is K. So I give the food only for K people only. Right? K people are there, K units of bread only. That's all. There are many people that starve and die naturally. That restriction should be there. As well, not possible. Once these maximum levels are approached, growth will be slow. So these conditions again are imposed on this same experiment in 1920s, that is, and they put some condition and they observed that the yeast biomass has reached a maximum level of 660 something like that, and the change, if you observe here, 8.7 to maximum of 90, 93, it has reached 93. Then what happened again? It is actually gradually decreased to 2.3 or something like that. So gradually the change is increasing and gradually is decreasing. So that means by refining the model such a way that restricting on the population, then the change is gradually having a U-shaped curve statistician enjoy U-shaped curve, what we call Gaussian curve. So let us say the biomass, if the amount of biomass, I'm talking about Gaussian curve in terms of the change. Don't get confused. I'm talking about the Gaussian curve in this change. Now I'm talking about this population curve. So what is happening here? You start this at this point gradually. Once this maximum amount 665 or something is reached, what happens? The curve is constant curve. That means once the population reaches maximum capacity, then it continues like that. Okay, it cannot exceed the maximum capacity of the system. That is the refinement in the model, right? So, and for inflection point here, at this point, the rate of change will be maximum and all that. Okay, that's all. It can be observed that under restriction on resources, the population reaches a maximum of 665, which is called carrying capacity. Also, P approach 665, delta P. So, what happens to delta P? When Pn approaches almost, let us say Pn is population is 664. Then what happens? 665 minus 664 becomes 1 only. If P is again, let us say only 100, what happens? 555, 565. So that means when Pn reaches 665, the coefficient is almost very close to very small value, right? That means delta P, the change will be slowed down. Initially, the change is very huge change you observe. Gradually, the change is slowed down, scaled down, right? Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah. The data corresponds to a new model. That means delta Pn is equal to K into 665 minus Pn is equal to Pn is given next. Now, question now, we know Pn, the data is available. 665 is the carrying capacity. Then what about K? That's the issue now. We have to calculate K for the given data. Now, the efficiency of your model depends on how we calculate K. Let us see. So this is the geometry now. Data between the graph between Pn plus 1 minus versus the right hand set and Pn into 665 minus Pn. We have these two things are connected by K. Right hand side delta Pn. Sorry, left hand side. Right hand side this amount is there multiplied with K. So these two things are related by K. So if you don't have K, this is how these two things they change. Clearly they are not in proportion unless you mention some K. So you have to multiply these things with some K so that these values are approximately equal to these things. If you do that, for that, what I do is, now if you observe these points, they almost along the straight line. If you use least squares approximation lines, the errors, let us say here, the errors are very much negligible. If you have a straight line like this, and if you find the slope of the straight line from the given data, comes and let us say 0.00082. 0.00082. So your model becomes delta Pn is equal to 0.00082 into 665 minus Pn and Pn. Now you have complete equation, mathematical formulation. So once you get the mathematical equation, then what you have to do? You have to get the verification. You have to get the verification. How do you verify? Solve it using the solution, get the data, compare it with the actual data. Compare it with the actual data. Let us see. So delta Pn is equal to 0.00082 665 minus Pn into Pn. This is the equation. So if you multiply with separate this is 0.5453 Pn minus this thing. So delta Pn minus Pn is equal to this. This is your Rn and this is your linear equation. This is your linear equation. So you can solve it using a method discussed earlier. Otherwise, initially, if P0 is 9.6, that's what I take here. See, initially at n is equal to 0, Pn is 9.6. I use the data. Okay, P0 9.6. I calculate P1 from this. 1.5453 P0 9.6 minus 0.0082 P0 square. I get 14.76. You put it here back in this, you get P2. Again put it back P3. Similarly, we calculate all the results. We get tabulate the values. This is your predicted value from the mathematical model. Okay, this is observed data in the laboratory. This is actual. This is the predicted. Okay, now if you draw a plot the diagram between these two values, observed data and predicted data. Bold points are observations and these circles are predictions. we have very close approximations, right? This is how we model a given data using difference equations. Another problem, let's see, problem is a car rental company, because rental cars is a very important idea these days. Maybe this idea started in other countries way back, maybe 20-30 years back, but the last 10 years we have been observing in India also. We have Ola, we have some other thing. Maybe we have Zoom cars in big cities, Bangalore, Chennai and Delhi, we have Bombay and all that. We have Zoom car concept. That means you borrow a vehicle, that vehicle will be given to you, you go to wherever you want and then spend some time, come back, and that's the logistics he has to plan it. Then how they plan the logistics, the dynamics of this problem. So a car rental company has distributed cities Orlando and Tampa. Again, why I'm taking Orlando and Tampa and US examples, this is a practical problem. They conducted some survey in Orlando and Tampa and they got the data. I have taken the data from the physical problem and I'm explaining you. A car rental company has distributed way back in cities Orlando and Tampa and catered to the service of tourists in both cities. What does it mean? A traveler can take from one city and drop another. A traveler who lands in Orlando takes a car and goes to Tampa. He keeps the vehicle with him that night, and the next day he comes back, finish off his job there in Tampa. He comes back to Orlando and hands it over. That's how it happens, right? The company wants to determine how much to charge for this drop of convenience. Will a sufficient number of cars are end up in each city? So if out of 100 people, 50 people take the car from Orlando and leave it Tampa, and now how many cars are left in Tampa? Only 50. Now can he run this company only 50 in Tampa? Once these 50 come back, no problem. Before that, can they maintain? That's the problem. Will a sufficient number of cars are end up in each city to cater in the tourists in that city? And then now the records show that 60% of cars rented in Orlando are returned to Orlando, whereas 40% are stuck up in Tampa. The cars rented in Tampa, 70% returned and 30% end up in Orlando. Formulate a model for this and discuss. Okay, this is the problem. So let n represent the number of days and define yn is number of cars in Orlando at the end of day n. Okay, some of the cars have left Orlando. Still some cars are staying in Orlando. Let that be ON. Similarly, TN represents the number of cars in Tampa at the end of TN. So then ON plus 1. So that means for the next day, how many cars are available for service? That means out of 100 cars, 60 cars or 60% are coming back. That's what data says. Data says 60% of cars are rented in Orlando are coming back. So 60% of ON are coming back. They're staying for n plus 1 period. And what about Tampa? In Tampa, cars 30% are held up in Orlando. So what is the total number of cars in Orlando now? 60% of cars rented in Orlando and 30% of cars rented in Tampa. These 0.6 ON, these 60% and 30% are staying back in Orlando for the next day. So this ON plus the number of cars available is ON plus 1 is 0.6 ON plus 0.3 TN, and TN plus 1 similarly 0.4% of ON are staying back at Tampa and 0.7 are returning back to Tampa. So these are the two equations we have. Then once we have a difference equation like this, then see what I have done is till now in the previous example I said one linear difference equation. Now I am considering system of difference equations. Okay, I just are giving example for each one, right? So once the equations are formulated is a mathematical model as obtained, right? Okay, in the first few slides, mathematical formulation, I have formulated the model as a difference equation, system of equations. Now, what are the different things to be studied in mathematical? In this problem, first we find the equilibrium point. Question mark. What is equilibrium point? We have not discussed the equilibrium point till now. Let us see. And then explore the starting values in their vicinity. And in this, around this equilibrium point, what are the behavior of the starting values, that means initial points. I have told you earlier in the example, the solution is depending on the initial value. I have, if you remember this here, right, the solution remains like this. If I take 20, it remains 20 throughout. It remains 40 if I take initially take 40. If I take 100 initially, it remains 100 throughout. So that means completely depending on the initial condition. Is it so here or it is changing? That's what we have to discuss, how these initial points are changing their behavior. That's what we have to study. We want to study it. So, and then explore the starting values. That starting values mean initial points in their vicinity. If we select values closer to the equilibrium point, say for example, if I choose my initial values close to the equilibrium values, okay, then do they remain close to the equilibrium value or deviate? If they deviate, the model is not correct. Okay, approach the equilibrium value, very good. Not remain close to the equilibrium value, deviate, not a good example, good model. So all the values after some time, they should give some stability, sustainability to the system. And that is very much required in dynamic systems, right? So whatever initial points you take, gradually these two initial points, they should converge to some equilibrium values. Long-term behavioral system, maybe is a periodic or an oscillatory or sensitivity to initial conditions. Sensitivity means, what is sensitivity is, if there are small changes in the initial conditions or initial calculations, how these small calculations affect finally, this is sensitivity. Let us say a number u is called, let us define these things. I said equilibrium point, we have got the difference equations. Now what we want to study in this equation, we want to study. So what is the equilibrium point? A number u is called an equilibrium point of dynamical system if un plus 1 is equal to f of un. Same system, if un is equal to u for all n, that means the un system must be equal to a constant value for all n. If that happens, then that's called an equilibrium point. That means for the first few values of n, let us say for n is equal to 0, 1, 2, 3, you may not observe this phenomenon. But after certain stage, maybe solution may be coming like this, right? Gradually, first a few values you may not observe, but after some time what happens? Gradually, it goes to the equilibrium point. Okay, so un is equal to u is a constant solution to the dynamical system. So that is what we mean by equilibrium point. Equilibrium values are helpful in understanding long-term behavior. That is what is the usefulness of the equilibrium point. When n goes on increasing, how the solution behaves. Initially, you are not able to estimate the solution because it is changing abruptly, maybe something like this also. After some time, gradually it converges to a point, constant value. Right? So that means what we call long-term behavior. The long-term behavior can be understood using equilibrium values. Equilibrium value for the core rental problem. Now let us see this equilibrium, how this core rental problem. We have this problem is yn plus 1 is equal to 0.6 yn plus t 0.3 and so on and so forth. And equilibrium value is yn is equal to un is equal to u. That is equilibrium point. So for the system, equilibrium point means yn is equal to o, tn is equal to t. Let us say yn is equal to o, tn is equal to t. So this becomes t o is equal to 0.6 o plus 0.3 t, and t is equal to 0.4 o plus 0.7 t. So equilibrium means yn is equal to yn plus 1 is equal to o, tn is equal to tn plus 1 is equal to t. So if you put them, this is what we get. If you take this o this side and t this side and convert into matrix equation, this is what I get. This is mathematical formulation is over. Now I'm solving the mathematical problem. Once I solve the problem, I interpret the solution. That's what I said in the first slides. So the equations are minus 0.4, 0.3, 0.4 minus 0.3, 0t is equal to 0. It's a homogeneous system of equations. You know that these two vectors are dependent vectors. We add these two things, the second row becomes 0 clearly. And from the first equation, very clearly, 0.4 o plus 0.3 t is equal to 0, or o is equal to 3 by 4 times t. This is the definition of your equilibrium point for the given problem. Now let us see. For example, if the company owns 7,000 cars, Now, initial points I have to explore the initial values now. 7,000 cars and starts with 3,000 because 3/4 is T. Using this, total we have 7,000 cars and 3,000 in Orlando, 4,000 in Tampa. So 3/4 of Tampa is 3/4 into 4,000, that is 3,000 is O. Okay, 3/4 of 4,000 is 3,000, that is O is equal to 3/40. Tampa, then our model gives O1, then we put these values 3,000 O and T is equal to 4,000 in these equations. Okay. Then you get O1 is equal to 3,000, T1 is equal to 4,000. Again, the same values are obtained. Again, substitute, you will get the same thing. Again, substitute, you will get the same thing. And that means your O and T are the equilibrium values. Because how many times you substitute the values recursively, it gives the same values of O and T. So let us say if you take 3,000 and 4,000, you are getting best values, equilibrium values. Now, my question is, my observation I said is, what we have to study. If you select values closer to the equilibrium point, are they close to equilibrium? Will they remain close or not? That's what we have to study. Let us see. I'm not taking 3,000, 4,000. I take some other initial conditions. So let's say that I'm not purchasing any vehicles at Tampa. Only 7,000 at Orlando and Tampa 0. That is first case. Otherwise, Orlando 5,000, Tampa 2,000. Mind you, the total should be 7,000. And 2,000, 5,000 are all the vehicles in Tampa. Okay, so all the 4 cases, let us say. First case is 7,000, 0. So Orlando 7,000, Tampa 0. We have 2 equations, difference equations. You put those equations O and T there, O1 and T, O0, T0 there, we will get O1, T1. Again put it, we get O2, T2, O3, T3. Plot the points. Block points are Tampa and the diamonds are Orlando. See, initially, Orlando, Tampa is 0 here, Orlando is 7,000 here. Okay, the second iteration, Orlando is 4,200, it is Tampa is 2,800. Gradually, what happened? The values are becoming very close to 3,000 and 4,000. 3,000, 4,000, what is 3,000, 4,000? Equilibrium value. Even if you take 7,000 and Tampa is 0, they are converging from third iteration onwards to 3,000 and 4,000. So case 1 is doing well. Long time behavior is very well, because however you vehicles you take, system is taking care of itself so that the solution approaches equilibrium value. Very good. Case 2 is I take 5,000 at Orlando and 2,000 at Tampa, and the second iteration gives 3,600, 3,400, so on and so forth. Here also, Tampa is initially 2,000. Orlando is 5,000. By third iteration again, they are converging to 4,000 and 3,000. This case 2 is also working out well. Next, case 3, I take Orlando 2,000, Tampa 5,000. Again, I calculate, they are also doing well. Here also doing well. So in all the above 4 cases, within a week, the system is very close to the equilibrium point. That means the equilibrium point is very good point and is very stable also. It's not changing, because in one case they are converging to some, let us say 2,000 and 5,000. In one case it is changing to 3,000, 4,000. In other case it is changing to 5,000, 6,000, 1,000. That means the equilibrium values are changing. It's not a right model. So wherever you start initially, the equilibrium comes out to be 3,000, 4,000, and it is stable for all different cases. It means that the equilibrium point is stable and insensitive to the initial condition. That's what we call sensitivity. If you change the initial conditions, the solution equilibrium point should not change. If the equilibrium value changes with changing initial conditions, then sensitivity is an issue. So equilibrium is insensitive. However, change, I am insensitive, right? Conclusions and suggestions to the company after the model is studied and equilibrium values are studied. From the above discussion, we predict that the system approaches equilibrium where 3/7 of the cars ends up in Orlando and 4/7 of cars end up in Tampa. This is the study, and 3,000, 4,000 is the best ideal breakup of the 7,000 cars purchased by the company. Another model is travelers tendencies in airport. Let us see. The first example we have studied is population dynamics or interest model, right? That's a biological problem. The second problem, car rental, is business problem. Business economics, or maybe resource of management. This is completely management problem comes under managerial techniques. The third one is traveler's tendencies an airport. This is administrative. Consider real airport. American A stands for A, United U, US Airlines S. Assume that these trends continue and no additional local travelers enter or leave the system. Formulate and discuss a mathematical model for this. Let us say yes and A and U I have given it. It is recorded that 70% of those who traveled on yes means US Airlines, traveled again on yes, 5% switched to fly U and 20% to fly A. Similarly, in U and A also. So mathematical model. SN is the number of US airline travelers in week N. UN is similar in N, United Airlines, and AN is American Airlines. Then the number of travelers returned with S changing from U and changing from A to S. The first equation. Coming to the second equation, number of travelers sticking up to UN and shifting from SN and coming from AN. And third one is AN plus 1. Sticking to this 40% are sticking to AN, 20% are jumping from SN, and another 20% are crossing from UN. These are the three differences. You see, modeling is a prototype. It's a basic equations. Now tell me, this is a very basic equation. I'll tell you how to improve this equation. So if the equilibrium conditions exist, then SN becomes A, UN becomes U, and AN is equal to A. You put them, you get three equations. The system clearly, if you first sum up, add these two equations and add three equations, minus 0.25 plus 0.5 minus 0.2 plus 0.0, 0.2 plus minus 0.4 minus 0.2 plus 0.0, 4 plus 4, 4 plus 2, 6. Okay, so the third equation is a sum, total of the first two equations. Third equation can be reduced to 0. So rank is less than number of unknowns. We know that homogeneous equation has infinite number of solutions. Let us start with the solution. Let us take an initial condition. A is equal to 1000, S is equal to 2222, U is 778. So let us say this is our equilibrium value. Okay. So you can have other conditions also. First case is 1778, 2222. Another case like this, third case, fourth case. Let us see what happens. In the first case, that is 2222, 778, 1000, we get perfectly straight lines, equilibrium values, no problem. So throughout all calculations, see, throughout for all N, it sticks at 2222.22222. This one. So constant value we are getting, solutions we are getting. That means in the first step itself, they are converging to the equilibrium value. If you take another case, case 2, that means American is 900, Airlines is United Airlines is 828, and US Airways is 2272. Then gradually what happened? This one is changing gradually, is approaching 2222. The second one is ranging to 778 from, you can observe that from 6th week onwards, from the first week is 828. By the time it enters 7th week, it is going to the equilibrium value, that is 777 value. There onwards continuously it is having the same value. The third one, 900, 996, increased to 999, then decreased. That means gradually again after 13th week it is reaching 1000. So it is called a long-term behavior. So 0 week 900, after 20 weeks, that means almost 6 months, it is converging to 1000. So slower rate or faster rate, finally the initial value is converging to the equilibrium. It is going towards the equilibrium values. So here also we see if you take 2000, 1000, 1000, 1000, 2000. So there will be so much of changes here. Okay. Finally, of course, they are converging, but it's so many changes, so many fluctuations. So another case, case 4, 00, all 4000 are traveling by American Airlines. So see, this is ideal case. Now, will it work for all types of problems? No. I have a condition now. I said some conditions should be there. Let us say if this is the case, last example, all the 4,000 are traveling on American, then what is the fun of having US Airways and United Airlines? You can close them now, isn't it? Question now is this carrying capacity is not possible. Solution is not a viable solution in practical. What happens? American Airlines is very good airlines. It gives punctuality, maintenance, hospitality, communication with the passenger is absolute perfect. Tariff is absolutely perfect. But we have a serious condition on the availability of services. That means it is not running too many services. Per day only one flight will be there. Now what about the remaining people? So there will be a condition on the carrying capacity. So how we include that in the model? In, let us say we want to include that carrying capacity, maximum carrying capacity at AN, then it should be, let us say maximum carrying capacity per week is 1000. So you'll get a term AN into 1000 minus AN. This equation becomes AN into 1000 minus AN. Say for example on UN we have maximum capacity is 1500. This term changes. So this is the basic model. You can develop it further. If you want to put some condition on yes, U or A, that's up to you. You can revise the system depending on the restrictions you have. That you can develop the model. Conclusions is Orlando, this is over. Then we are going to the higher order equations. Sir, can I have some more few minutes time?
Sorry, five more minutes, sir.
Okay, sir. Okay. So general form of the difference equation is like this. So we call this as order of the equation is the order of the equation of the difference equation is difference between the largest argument and smallest argument explicitly involved. That means the largest argument is xt plus 1. Here it is xt. The difference is t plus n minus t, that is n. N is the order of the difference equation. It is not exactly same as in differential equations. The order of the equation is 2. For this equation, un plus 3 is the highest argument, n plus 1 is the smallest argument. Difference between these two is the order of the equation 2. But the order of un plus 10 is 0 because explicit difference we want. We don't have the lowest term. So sometimes let us say, then what is the if I write the difference equation, the same equation in differential, using forward difference operator, this becomes lambda cube un plus 3 delta square. Delta cube un plus 3 delta square. Plus delta un minus un is equal to Rm. Just by looking at the equation, one believes that the order of the difference equation is 3, because just like in differential equation, highest power of differential operator, that's what we call the highest order of the highest derivative, we call as order of the equation. Here also the highest power of the delta operator, the answer is 3, but wrong. It's not so here. So equation delta cube, if you expand delta cube, delta square, you get this equation. And if you find the difference between the arguments, what is that? N plus 3 minus n plus 1, that's 2. But if you look at this equation, you say the answer is 3. But it's not so, it is 2 only. So that's why if you have difference equations in terms of delta, slightly misleading. While finding the order of the difference equation, it must be expressed in a form free of delta. For the highest power of delta does not give the order of difference equation. Be very careful. Okay. Linear homogeneous difference equation with constant coefficients. If P1, T, P, and T are all constants, then we call it the linear coefficients with the constant linear equation with constant coefficients, and then solution is having a complementary function, particular integral as usual. So auxiliary equation, we write the auxiliary equation as usual. So let us say lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda n are the roots of the auxiliary equation. Then corresponding to lambda 1, the solution is lambda 1 power n. There e power alpha 1 t. Here lambda 1 power n. That is the difference. Then un is so and so. And then particular integral. So quickly I'm browsing through this. Here see that example. If you find the auxiliary equation is m cube minus 2m square minus 5 plus 6m is equal to 0. The roots are 1 minus 2, 3. So the complete solution becomes like this. So Fibonacci difference equation. We know Fibonacci series 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5. That means every term is sum of the previous two terms. That is what we call Fibonacci sequence. Now if I ask you to find what is the 99th term in Fibonacci sequence, tomorrow if you apply for an exam or an interview, can you tell me what is 54th term in Fibonacci sequence? You don't know what is that. You have to add the complete sequence of terms. 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, something like this. No, it's not. It need not be like that. That is, each term n plus 2 term is sum of n plus 1 and un, right? So it's a difference equation. So auxiliary equation is m square minus m minus 1 is equal to 0. The roots are m is equal to 1 by 2, 1 plus or minus square root 5. The solution for this Fibonacci difference equation is un is equal to c1 into this power n plus c2 into this power n, because 1 plus or minus we have. But c1, c2 are there, which are arbitrary constant. We can evaluate them. Why? How? Because for n is equal to 1, we know that first member of the sequence is 0. So if we put n is equal to 1, c1 into something this power n plus c2 into this power n must be equal to 0. For n is equal to 2, the second element Fibonacci sequence is 1. So equate it to put n is equal to 2 here in this solution, that will be equal to 1. So you say two equations and two unknowns. If you solve them, you get Cn is equal to C1 is so, C2 is so. It's not a modeling of difference equation, application of difference equation. So we have two parts in my presentation. One is modeling aspect, the other is applications of difference equations aspect. Like this, you can write a difference equation for every sequence, and you can get any term that you want once you know un. So once you have u, c1 and c2 here, now you can write un as 5 minus root 5 by 10 into 1 plus square root 5 by 2 power n, so on and so forth. If you put n is equal to 54 now, you calculate it. You get 54th term. Calculating power 54 is not a big deal now. Once you have calculated scientific computation, it's not a big deal. You can very easily do it now. So you'll get any u in the Fibonacci sequence. One nice application of the difference equation is in Fibonacci sequence, not exactly in Fibonacci sequence, any sequence if you have, then you want to find a general term and term in that, you can write a difference equation and do it. Particular integrals, so usually it is 1 by f phi of e Rn, Rn can be any function. Let us say first it is a power n, then 1 by phi of a power n, if phi of a not equal to 0. The similar technique that we have applied in differential equation. If phi of a is equal to 0, then n a power m minus 1 1 by phi dash a, if phi dash a not equal to 0, it continues. For sine and cosine functions, the sine function can be expressed e power ikn minus e power minus ikn by 2i, that is e power 2i, a power n minus b power n. An is e power ikn, bn is e power minus ik. So the sine kn can be expressed as 1 by 2a into a power n minus bn. Similarly, cos kn can be expressed 1 by 2 a power n plus b power n. Once you have a power n and b power n, we apply this method, case 1. You can solve it. So k n power p. Here also we express 1 by phi of e. We expand phi of 1 plus e is 1 plus delta, we know. Then we expand phi of 1 plus delta in the increasing powers of delta by using binomial theorem, just what similar way we do in differential equation. And then we know that delta power p n power p reduces to 0. So that's how we calculate different power solutions. Now, so sometimes we have, see the difference between differential, the backdrop of differential equation and the backdrop of difference equations. One is a continuous intervals, one is defined in continuous domains, other one is discrete domains. Sometimes still the latest work now is sometimes we have mixed model, like say first 2 discrete points, then I have interval, then another 2 3 discrete points, another intervals. Hybrid, a mixture of discrete points and some intervals. Now neither your differential equation nor your difference equation can solve such problem. That is the present state of work. So here combined framework, from the above observation, mathematical models that describe physical phenomena are in most cases either differential or difference equations. In fact, difference equations are proved to be convenient in discretization methods of differential equations, and in fact there is a prominent similarity or even duality between theories of continuous and discrete systems. This may pose some difficulties and in some cases things may go wrong. Basically, continuous and discrete systems are topologically different. What do you mean by topologically different? They have connectivity the points are connected, the sets are connected in continuous cases, whereas in discrete domains, all the elements in the domain are discrete points. So most of the times, further assumptions are essential in discrete case in order to overcome topological deficiency. From a modeling point of view, it is perhaps more realistic to model a framework for dynamic systems which incorporates both continuous and discrete systems and enables to study both simultaneously. That is the idea of time scale. Okay. In fact, this time scale idea was started in 1992 by Stefan Helger. She is a German lady. She did her doctorate on that 92. The first paper was published, and I started working on these time scales 1995, 3 years after the birth of the topic. And my thesis PhD is completely done on time scales, which is a combination of differential and difference equation, or else better you say intervals and discrete points. This time scales combines both these fields. So during the last few decades, a lot of work, voluminous work has been done on this area, time scales. So I'm not going to the details of time scales because time is almost all. I have taken 1 hour 45 minutes, it seems. So I stop my presentation here. So if you have any, thank you very much, all of you. If you have any doubts, I try to answer.
Thank you very much, sir. You are starting the lecture with a beautiful quote, and you are starting with a model differential and difference equations, and you had quoted relation between differential and difference equations, importance of difference equation also given by you, behavior of solution of difference equation also discussed by you, and the model predictions and observations also given by you, and you discussed the different live examples also. We are very much thankful, sir. There are a few questions from the audience are there. Please, our colleague Srinivas will ask you, sir, please.
Yes,
Sir,
sir.
shall I ask? Okay,
Yes,
sir. The first question is, can we convert the results of difference equation into differential equations or dynamic equations on time scales? This is a question from the.
May I know? Because time scales, someone talking about time scales, I am interested in that. If you don't have an objection.
Sir, we will give that the number, sir. We will discuss with him, sir, because less number of participants are there, please.
Okay. Yes, you can do it, but not that easily, because in discrete points, what are the points we are considering, that is very important. In time scales, how we define this is very important. Yes, this is a generalization from both discrete and difference and differential equations. So from only difference equations, you cannot generalize. We have to keep that differential corresponding continuous domain also in mind and then generalize it, so that the resulting model in differential equation must be in a position to answer both continuous and discrete cases simultaneously. Okay.
Okay, sir. Next question, sir.
Okay.
Sir, is there any difference between Nash equilibrium and equilibrium point?
I'm not into the details of equilibrium points because I'm modeling. Equilibrium point is a very basic idea.
Okay, sir.
And I'm sorry to say that Nash equilibrium, I cannot say anything about Nash equilibrium. Every equilibrium point is Nash equilibrium point or Nash equilibrium point. I can't say anything about that. I have to go refer it. And if they can contact me, they can contact me. I'll explain them what is Nash equilibrium and equilibrium point.
Okay, sir. Next question, sir. One more question is there. Why we use partial derivatives to check the condition of exactness in exact differential equations?
Why you use partial derivatives in?
To check the condition of exactness in exact differential equations.
Yes, akkada, while we're doing with M is they are not X and Y are not dependent independent. We don't consider them as X and Y are independent dependent. When you write dy by dx is equal to some M by N and you convert into M dx plus N dy is equal to 0, you mean that M and N are the dependent variables changing with respect to X and Y.
Okay, sir.
That's why we have to use how m changes with respect to a, how m changes with respect to y. We write m of xy dx plus n of xy dy. For a moment, we forget that x is independent, y is dependent, and we write m and n are functions of x and y. So that m dx plus m dy is equal to some exact derivative of d phi. Okay, and then that is nothing but differential, complete total derivative in partial differentiation. Dou m by dou x dx plus dou m by dou y dy is equal to dm, right? That principle comes there, and assuming that m and n depend x and y, we write conditions for m and exactness in terms of partial derivatives.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. These are the questions, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Subbarao garu. Thank you, one and all, for patiently hearing to me, listening to me, and it is a humble attempt to throw some light on difference equations, because, as I said in my presentations, difference equations are most neglected. We don't talk much about difference equations, but everywhere we use difference equations. Particularly, every mathematician, every engineer, now they convert the problem into a program, write a program for the given problem, input the data. What is data? When you say data, that means discrete points they come. When you have discrete points, you have difference calculus is there.
But you have discussed several examples, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
very
you, sir.
much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Shall I log out?
Yes, sir, you can log out, sir.
Okay, thank you.